It is 12:48 a.m. I'll never forget this detail. I am sitting in the back of my truck with Chris, who is, as far as I know, somewhat asleep. Pigs have not shown. My farmer friends assure me that the hogs show up every night between 11 and 1, and they should know. These brazen swine consistently batter the mobile chicken coops that dot their pastures on this property on the Oak Savanna in east central Texas. The couple that owns this small parcel of land have taken to sitting in the back of their truck and shooting at the pigs with shotguns at point blank range, but that's not deterring them at all. This is where I come in. We're gonna go kill the biggest, roundest, fattest hog in all the land. Hopefully it's gonna be plump and acorn fed, because there's no ribs in the freezer. I was always fascinated by hunting, and I always spent all my time out in the woods, but I didn't grow up in a family that hunted. Got really into it. I'd already knew how to butcher from my restaurant experience. So, I've been working in restaurants since I was 14, so I've been butchering whole animals. So I was really familiar with that component, and of course cooking. Ooh, that's so good. And so it just kind of tied it all together and haven't looked back since. I wanted to do a book just on hogs because it seemed to be the elephant in the room, and we kind of found ourselves typecast almost in this role of talking about pigs and educating. This is why they're so destructive. It's just topsoil destruction right here. A group of 20 pigs can take out an acre in a night. I mean, and especially like right after planting times, like corn or anything like that, they'll just walk down the row and just root it up. Historically, hogs were brought to North America centuries ago. One of the reasons that Texas has such a huge population is that the environment here is remarkably similar to the environment that they came from in central Spain. And then there's a lot of cultural reasons that they've thrived too, is because we have a lot of large tracts of land that are under the ownership of relatively few people, and so the hogs tend to have a bit of sanctuary in those areas. And then we also have just a lot of very rugged terrain and a lot of rivers, creeks, and streams that they kind of maneuver along, and that's how that spread has happened. An overused term possibly is perfect storm, but that's what happened here in Texas. I think this stays wet most of the time. Killing and eating hogs is an act that is wholly good. They need to be controlled. All right. I don't know what it's going to be like out there. It could be pretty kind of rowdy. So I'll just bust through it. You can spot and stalk them, like go to likely areas, which are during the day going to be low, shady areas that have a bit of that are cool and maybe have some moisture. Look for wallows or anywhere you think the water's pooling, following creeks, draws, drains, anything like that, and then like really dense, shady brush. And so you kind of want to map a route to hit those areas. I'd say it's just kind of creep and just like kind of, like I said, grit it, maybe come back and just like come back until we start hitting the feeders when the sun gets lower. And then play the wind constantly. It's the most important thing, is keeping that wind either crossing or in your face at all times, because if they smell you, they're out. You can also post up over feeders. They can get into a routine of coming to a timed feeder. which can be a really consistent and kind of an easier way to hunt them. And it keeps you in a blind where they can't see you, and the likelihood of them smelling you is not as good. And then you can hunt them at night. The excitement around the shot is kind of that halfway point. All right, drag him. I've always been fascinated with food and its origins. I love having the connectivity from start to finish. These steaks from the neck to about the 5th or 6th rib in here are going to be incredible. There's a real need for that education. So it's like, let's try to gather as much information as we can about feral hogs. Every question that I've ever heard about them, let's try to figure out the best answer to that and put it in a book. And those can be slow cooked, they can be smoked, they can be braised, they can be grilled. Just like some basic guidelines to enable and empower them to get more out of those hogs. And they'll be fantastic because there'll be enough fat in there to keep them moist. And to dispel a lot of the myths. I think for a boar, this really highlights why people should give them a chance. And what we try to do education-wise is just teach people some really basic tenets for approaching eating hogs. So this ham, you could leave whole for a really beautiful city ham that would be brined. Not a system or a way of thinking about it that is super complicated, but just a real basic approach. He ate oaks, and now we're going to use oak to eat him. I think the question that really spurred it is somebody once was like, what is your recipe for feral hog? Like that is an unanswerable question. First off, how big is that hog? It's got some nice fat on him. It's a good looking pig. You can't treat a big boar and a small piglet the same way in the kitchen. And then I throw it in a really simple marinade, 50-50 olive oil and honey. That'll help char it up on the outside. We just try to make it very simple, make the recipes very approachable. I want them to be really crispy. On the way to, not burnt, but like I want some really good caramelization. And then there's also a lot of information about hunting them. Yeah. There's a little pond to the right of that, and the creek runs along there. How to process, skinning and gutting them. But I need to do that in one solid motion. And then we have butchery diagrams per category. Put the tip of the cleaver on the rib you want to cut and give it a really solid whack, and then move along to the next rib. 4 very long sequences of how I would butcher each individual hog to get all these different cuts. I'm an avowed doe hunter. I love my does. I like to kill a few ducks every year. And I like to hunt hogs. I hunt for the things that I love to eat. And I think that if you eat a hog, you can save the world.